There are certain practices that we observe on a daily basis. And it is said that if you do not change the practices that you engage in on a daily basis, you will never be able to change the direction of your life. Every person who has been successful have done things on a daily basis which contribute to their success. For us as humans, we all have good habits and bad habits. And we all would like to improve ourselves across the different spheres of our life, in terms of our spirituality, in terms of our fitness, in terms of our eating, in terms of our human relations. There are always areas that we would like to improve ourselves. And there's a saying that bad habits are easy to form, but they make your life difficult. Good habits are difficult to form, but they make your life easy. And the reality is that bad habits, they come from the nafs, from the bestial self. Because the nafs wants instant gratification. It wants pleasure immediately. It wants to enjoy. And therefore, it draws us to those things that are bad for us. And we get caught in that. And sometimes, it's a moment of temptation that a person gives into, destroys their entire life. On the other hand, good habits require effort. It requires purpose. It requires mindfulness. And with that, one is able to establish good habits. And we all have the capability in this regard. When it comes to goodness, Allah Rabbul Izzah says, فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ Hasten towards goodness. A mu'min, احرص على ما ينفعك. Be desirous of that which will benefit you. Always looking at opportunity to improve yourself. Always looking at opportunities to find motivation so that across the different spheres of one's life, one is able to progress. Now, when we look at the psychological pattern with regards to a habit, then there was a study that was carried out at a university in the United States. They observed the behavior of certain animals. In fact, it was rats. And they found that they were able to emerge from a maze very easily. And when they had an injury to the basal ganglia, which is the part of the brain which is attached to the spine, then for the rat to emerge from the maze became difficult. And what this subsequently revealed is that things that are done repetitively, that is how a habit is formed, through repetition. When you engage in something frequently, then we go into what is called autopilot mode. So when the basal ganglia was injured, these rats were not able to emerge from the maze. And what does the basal ganglia do? It takes over when the rest of the brain shuts down. So when you're doing something again and again and again, then the basal ganglia controls the process of that particular action. So a typical example is, you're sitting in the office and the wife phones and says, you need to buy bread and milk. You jump in the car, you're driving, it's the normal route, traffic, robots. You continue and you come home and the wife asks, where's the bread and milk? He says, oh shucks, forgot. I think I'm getting old. You're not getting old. What in fact happened was that because you were driving the same route you drive every day, the basal ganglia takes over. It's repetition. So you're in the same routine of going home, so the rest of the brain shuts down and you then end up coming home without having purchased the bread and the milk. So the next time you forget, say that Mufti told me it's my basal ganglia that made me forget it. And the same happens with our salah. We enter the salah because it's repetitive. And we go through the motions without even sparing a moment to think, I am performing salah. I'm standing before Allah. I'm performing the Jummah salah or the Taraweeh salah. And the rakats go by and we weren't even conscious for one moment during the salah that we're actually performing salah. Our minds are just wandering. It's autopilot. So this is how a habit works. Now, in the book, The Power of Habit, the author has outlined that in the habit formation process, there are three components. The first is the cue, the second is the behavior, the response, and the third is the reward. The cue is the stimulus in the environment that activates something for you to act in a particular manner. The response is the behavior that you carry out. What is it that you're going to do? And the reward is the sense of the feeling, the mechanism that motivates the entire process. So when you wake up in the morning, the cue is already there. The waking up in the morning, the behavior, you drink coffee, and the reward, you feel energized for the day. So waking up, drinking coffee, feeling energized, that's how your day goes every day. And that is a process. Now, once we understand this particular process, we can then begin to use the process to establish new habits. So when you understand the cue, if the cue is there, and the cue is very noticeable, the cue is obvious, and then it will lead you to the response, and you'll get the reward, the motivation. So if you want to read more in the evening before you sleep, you put a book on your pillow. So the cue is there that you've got to read. And then what will take you to the next phase is the response, the behavior, is that if there's no friction in carrying out the behavior, then you'll carry out the behavior very easily, in the sense that you'll now pick up the book and read. There's lights, there's nothing to disturb you. So you'll pick up the book and you'll read for a few minutes. But if there's some friction, there's no lights, thanks to ESCOM, then you've got friction in fulfilling what you wanted to. And the reward would be that feeling of having learned something, having benefited something, having attained, progress. Because progress is what really leads us to true happiness. So when you understand this process, what we understand is that because the cue is triggered, then what happens is another particular step comes in this, where there's a craving that comes about. And this happens to people with addiction, that the moment the cue is activated, a craving comes. And the feeling they get with the craving is the same that they get when carrying out the action. The release of dopamine in the craving is the same. And that is why when people are craving something, it brings that same effect out on them. Now, when you want to activate this process, then the idea is to keep the cue as obvious as possible and to build on other habits. And then you can adjust. So a simple thing. Let me share with you insight on myself. Sometime last year, I decided that I'd like to read the 40 durood every day. So that's a new habit that I want to establish. Now, the cue that I established was, I usually recite the Noble Quran after Fajr. I have a spot. So I put the 40 Duroods Kitab on the table. There's my cue. After I'm finished reading Quran, the 40 Duroods is there. And there's no friction because the Kitab is there. I'm at the desk and I will start reading. And the response or the reward is, by reading the 40 Duroods every day, there's a certain barakah in your day, a closeness to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. You feel you're fulfilling the duty in terms of reciting durood on a daily basis. Now, if I sat and I said, I want to read 40 duroods every day, but I decided during my lunch break I'm going to read it. And I'll find the kitab that is in my cupboard and I'll take it out. Someone comes in my office at lunchtime. I'm busy. There's other things. The chances are very slim I'll get to read it. Or I decide 10 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock in the morning. It's not going to work because there's too much friction in the process. There's too many obstacles in you being able to fulfill the process of carrying out the action. So when you use what you have, what you're doing already, and that is what the author of the book, The Power of Habit, calls keystone habits. Keystone is in the archway, the center stone that keeps it all together. That is your keystone. And when you establish keystone habits, then you can build on that. And he talks about keystone habits that when a person starts focusing on fitness, then naturally you'll find that the person will become more conscious of his eating. More conscious of eating, it will improve your sleep. It will give you better overall well-being. So one change leads to multiple changes. When we look at our keystone habits, we have salah. Salah is what grants or gives us structure in our day. That everything is established around salah. And when you want to build a new habit, you build the habit around salah. That I want to make dhikr, so I will increase my dhikr after my asr salah, or after my fajr salah, or around salah. And when you build your habit in that particular manner, then you'll find that you'll be able to establish a habit. Now, when looking at what habits you want to establish, what is the first thing that we need to focus on? Is self-awareness. Because when we do something repetitively, then we go into autopilot mode. So self-awareness is important, that we always be conscious of our state of mind and what we're thinking about. Allama Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah said, self-awareness is dawamu mulahazatin nafs, that you're always looking inwardly and being mindful of your emotional state, about your thoughts, about what is it that is occupying the place in your mind. So that is the first point. Then the second is that you set some goals, that this is how I'd like to improve. This is the direction that I want to take. The hadith says, La aqlakat tadbir, that a person who fails to plan is planning to fail. So you have a plan of action as to how I'd like to incrementally improve myself in different aspects. And when you're looking at different aspects of your life to change, then one should be practical. When you start too big, then you'll give up more easily. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, when he spoke to the Sahaba, he said, Asumu wa aftir, I fast and I don't fast. Anamu wa aqumu, I stand in tahajjud salah and I sleep. And he said, Inna li jasadika alayka haqqa, that your body has a right over you. So there's balance, there's moderation. When you're establishing a new habit, there will be times when you wouldn't want to carry it out. And those are the times when you need grit, when you need tenacity, when you need patience to push forth. Al-mujahidu man jahada nafsahu. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that the one who is a mujahid, the one striving, is the one who fights his nafs. And self-discipline is to do what you're supposed to do even when you don't feel like doing it. To do what you're supposed to do even when you don't feel like doing it. And that is required with the establishment of a habit, that you need to have patience. إِنَّمَا يُوَفَّ الصَّابِرُونَ أَجْرًا بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. Patience is to hold your nafs and to push forth, to build that resolve. And when we look at, the habits of our pious predecessors and how consistent they were, that for many, many years, Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahumullah performed the Isha and the Fajr with the same wudu. That is because it was established as a habit, and once you establish good habits, it makes your life easy. Mullah Ashraf Ali Thanwi rahimahumullah was writing the Bayanul Quran, which is a commentary of the Noble Quran. And he had a stipulated time that he would write, that he dedicated to authoring this great book. And his Ustad, Shaykhul Hind, had come to visit him. So he entertained him. And the time had come for him now where he usually writes. So he asked his Ustad that, this is the time that I usually set aside for my writing. Will you excuse me for a few moments so I can go and sit and, engage in this activity? Ustad obviously gave him permission and said, by all means. And he says, I went there, I sat down and I wrote a few lines, but the excitement of knowing that my Ustad is here, the subject matter wasn't opening up. So I then put my pen down and I went back and presented myself to serve my Ustad. But he said that what lesson we learned from this is that how consistent he was. That even under those circumstances, he was able to maintain his habit. And therefore Allah Rabbul Izzah speaks about those who are consistent. And he says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا رَبُّنَا اللَّهُ ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا. That those who say Allah is our Rabb, ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا, and they remain steadfast. تَتَنَزَّلُ عَلَيْهِمُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ أَلَّا تَخَافُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا. Then the angels come down to them and say that you should not fear and do not grieve. The angels come down in the time of death, on the day of Qiyamah. Do not fear and do not grieve. Do not fear about what's going to happen in the future. Do not grieve about what has happened in the past. لا تخافوا ولا تحزنوا وأبشروا, and glad tidings بالجنة التي كنتم توعدون, with regards to the Jannah that you have promised. نحن أولياؤكم في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة. We are here, we are your friends in this world and the Akhirah. نزلا من غفور رحيم. This is the hospitality from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So consistency is what brings about this great virtue from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was asked what is the best action, he said, adwamuha, that which is most consistent. Now when you look at the word istiqamah, it means to seek to be upright. And when you're seeking something, you may be successful, you may fail. And in the process of the establishment of any habit, there will be times when you will fail. But that doesn't mean that when you fail that you give up, that you continue and that you push on. And when we want inspiration is to, sometimes you find people, and I've met one person who said to me, Mulana, I perform my 5 times salah, I read Quran, I do my bit, I give charity. What more do you want from me? So sometimes we become complacent in our own comfort zone. And we don't feel the need for any change. That I'm fine where I am. I'm doing my bit. I'm okay. There are others who are worse off than me. So there's a narration in the scripts of Amr ibn Shu'aib, who narrates from his father, who narrates from his grandfather, in which Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, Khaslatani, there are 2 qualities. Whoever has these qualities will be considered to be from the shakirin, those who make shukr, and those who make sabr. And he said that man nadara fi dunyahu ila man huwa asfala minhu fashakar Allah. That with regards to dunyawi matters, with regards to your worldly matters, you look at those on a lower level than yourself, and then you thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa fi dinihi, and with regards to your dini matters, you look at those who are on a higher level. Nadara ila man fawqahu faqtada bihi, and then you endeavor to emulate, you endeavor to follow. And if you do this, then you will be from the shakirin and the sabirin. However, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, the one and the human tendency is that we look at those who are on a higher level than us with regards to dunya stuff, with regards to worldly stuff, with regards to possessions, and then we regret about why we don't have that. And because of that regret that we have in our heart and the desire, we are then considered to be from the ungrateful ones. So this is how we gain motivation to change, to improve our habits. Ja'far ibn Sulaiman, rahimahullah, said that when I would feel there was a slack in myself, I would go to Muhammad ibn Wasi', and just by looking at the face of Muhammad ibn Wasi', he says, that would energize me in my worship. For weeks to come, I would feel the energy in my ibadat. And Fuzail bin Ayaz, rahimahullah, with regards to him, Abdullah bin Mubarak says that when I used to stand in front of him, I would consider myself to be nothing. I would think that, I'm not doing enough. I need to do more. I need to improve myself. I need to exert myself and move to the next level. And therefore there's a saying that goes that follow the one who, by looking at that person, it creates a sort of energy in yourself. And by that should serve as a motivation for us, the realization that we need to improve ourselves. Someone wrote and he said that in the month of Ramadan, the fact that you during the day at your own will could stay away from food which is normally permissible for you, it shows that you have within yourself the resolve to be able to stay away from sin throughout the year. The fact that you could come to the masjid and perform the Taraweeh Salah, which is a Sunnah Salah, it shows that you have within yourself the capacity to continue performing nawafil salah throughout the year. The fact that you were able to wake up for the suhoor, the pre-dawn meal, shows that you do have the capacity to wake up for the fajr salah throughout the year. So we all have within ourselves a hidden capacity, and it takes the will, it takes the desire, it takes the eagerness to change that will make the difference. 40% to 60% of our behavior is dictated by our habits. And if we can establish good habits, that is what will make our life, will make the difference in our lives. We've spoken about the power of the habit and the three parts to it. The cue, the response, and the reward. And by using these three mechanisms, we can establish multiple good habits in our lives. May Allah Rabbul Izzah grant us the ability to establish good habits in our lives.